Um, okay, so a little bit, I'll just kind of an overview of what our presentation will be. I'm going to talk a little bit about me, and then I'll talk about Audio Reader, how it started, and then the services that we offer, and then how you can listen. Have a couple listener quotes, and then we'll talk about volunteer opportunities, and then save some time for questions. So I'm Martha Kerr, as she said. And so I've been with Audio Reader in 2018. I started as a volunteer and I read Soap Opera Digest and grocery store ads. So I know Maureen's struggle at Target. I did Dollar General for a long time and Dillon's and all of those fun things. And then I moved into Missouri NewsHour, which was really interesting. I like that a lot. I should describe myself. I have gray hair with some black streaks and I wear glasses and I'm wearing my red Audio Reader shirt. I started as a staff 2 years ago, almost to the day, and I really enjoy being a staff member and working with the group. It's a small staff. There's only about 6 staff members, but then we have 250 volunteers. So wow. We are really a volunteer organization. I have my English degree from KU. I'm a Lions Club member, and I'm a fiction author in my spare time. So this is this full-time staff right here. We have our program manager, Nick. Trish is our volunteer coordinator. Colin runs the front desk and also helps with programming, making sure everything gets up on the air. And then we have Beth and Meredith. They are our development department and they run our annual golf event we have in June. And we also do audio sales with the library twice a year. We just had one in February and the next one will be in September. And then they also do all sorts of fundraisers. And then our director, Philanese Lovato Winston, she's actually the director of Audio Reader and Kansas Public Radio. So she's mostly with KPR, but she also is our director and gives us great vision. She's really great. So let's talk about where Audio Reader started. It started in 1971. PD Surf is our founding volunteer, and she's a very popular name in the community. You've probably heard of her before. She was a founding volunteer to Visiting Nurses, Kansas Advocates for Better Care, Cottonwood, the Ballard Center. So she was a prolific philanthropist in the area. And how it started was she walked into a nursing home because she had a friend who had lost her vision and she just wanted to read her the Lawrence Journal World. So she sat down and read the paper to her. And then as she was leaving one day in early 1971, she realized, I bet there's a lot of people who are in nursing homes or losing their vision at home who don't have access to a newspaper because there's no audio format and they don't have someone who has the time to come and sit next to them. So she thought, how could I read this paper to as many people as possible? And she brainstormed and worked with Kansas Public Radio, KANU. She actually purchased the subcarrier tower antenna that we broadcasted. And then she bought a whole bunch of these radios that tune into the subcarrier. And the reason we can't broadcast on FM or AM is due to copyright for the newspaper. But as long as it's an accessibility service serving the print-disabled public, then we were able to broadcast on these subcarriers. And so that's how Audio Reader started. And of course, then it was, I think, 8 hours a day, and they had a little trailer over next to the Max Cade Center. And then in 1988, we moved into our current location, which is lovely. It's over up by the construction site that will be the football stadium again someday. And we have this really lovely garden, which I'll talk about. And we share the building with Kansas Public Radio. So our services that we offer, we have our 24-hour broadcast. So that 8 hours a day of volunteer reading has moved to 24-hour plus, I would say plus, because we do a lot of additional special requests, standing special requests and newsletters, which I'll get into. We do live audio description at theaters. We have our sensory garden. We do lots of special requests. And then we hold those audio equipment sales twice a year. So the broadcast is sort of the nuts and bolts of what we do. All of those readers, I mentioned 250 plus volunteers. They read over 14,000 hours of content every year. We read daily newspapers. The major cities, Kansas City, Kansas City Star, Topeka Capital Journal, Wichita Eagle. And then we also read papers in Western Missouri all the way to Sedalia, the Sedalia Democrat, St. Joseph, and then we read papers all the way out to Dodge City. So we're covering local news throughout Kansas and Western Missouri. We also read regional magazines like Lawrence Magazine. We read national magazines like People, National Enquirer, lots of grocery store ads. Those are a favorite of our listeners because a lot of our listeners read through screen readers or they need large print text. And it's really hard with grocery stores to get the pictures to match up with the text. So just having someone who can browse through and summarize that information, it saves a lot of time and helps everyone save money, which as prices rise, that's more and more important. We also do read books. We have nightly book hours like adventure, mystery, and nonfiction book hours. And then throughout the evening and weekend, we have lots of special interest shows, sports shows, outdoor shows, religious shows, arts and entertainment. We have a comedy hour called Two on the Aisle, and I can't remember the other one. Oh, better, I can't remember it. We also do TV Guide. There's an African American hour that's also a podcast. To Your Health, it talks about health news. And so lots of programming that's serving our listeners, things they've requested or things that we know they need. We do live audio description. So this is a really unique service. And I don't know if you've ever if you looked for closed captioning options on your TV and you see this AD with those 3 curved lines, that means that the program has audio description available. And audio description is trying to help the visual elements be translated through audio. The goal is to not talk over any actors speaking lines or music. They're just adding information, as much information as possible in those few syllables between speaking lines. And at the theater, that's describing scenes, describing props, describing, if the time of day changes, things like that, the visual cues you would miss if you're not able to properly see the stage. And in addition to helping people with visual disabilities, it also helps children with ADHD and learning disability. It also helps neurodivergent people. So it's a service that benefits a lot of community members. At the Theater Lawrence, we do at least one show of all of their productions. We have special requests at Lead Center. We just did Fraggle Rock Live, and then we have a dance show that we're doing in April with the Paul Taylor Dance Company, which we're going to describe and have a reception ahead of time. So we're excited about that. And then in 2023, we added the Flint Hills Shakespeare Festival, which is near St. Mary, Kansas. And that's a real fun outdoor festival. And we also do Kansas City Starlight, the Broadway series. Here's an example. We do the Coterie Theater at Crown Center, which is a children's theater, but it's really fun for all ages. And we had a fun event there in December where we described Finding Nemo, which was their holiday play. And we had 6 listeners there with their families. And it was fun because before the show started, we were able to do a tour of the stage. And so our listeners could go up and feel the elements and kind of understand what the stage layout was. They got to, they did these little fabric samples so that they could feel kind of what the costumes were made of and what the textures were. And then the actors actually described themselves. So you could hear their voices, and then they described which characters they're playing during the show. So it really helped the listeners hear for those voices and anticipate what was going to happen. So it was a really fun day. And then if you're able to come up on campus, maybe not, well, this week's getting better, but we have our lovely sensory garden. And the goal of the sensory garden is to make it a fun experience for people of all abilities. So we try to choose plants that have tactile elements, olfactory elements. We have wind chimes and water features. So there's always this like calming sound. It's really tree-lined path. So it's a really fun place to spend the day. We find students there all the time reading books and people walking their dogs through. So it's open all 24 hours a day. You can just stop by, just park in the parking lot and walk around the garden. And then we do have these memorial bricks that line the beginning of the garden, and they're available for $100 on our website. You can donate a brick. A lot of our volunteers have bricks after they've been a volunteer for a while, and it's a fun way to come and view the garden and see your legacy. So we also do lots of special requests. So I was special requests can be all sorts of things. Instruction manuals. So last year we had a listener who bought an air fryer and they couldn't find the instructions in an audio format. So we read the air fryer instructions. We've done hearing aid instructions. I had a listener just last week who started with the Midland Care PACE program, and there was a booklet full of really important information that we're reading for her so she can have that in an audio format. We've read local authors' books. There was one called Secret Kansas, which is a fun fact book about Kansas. So we've read really odd, we've read some really odd requests. We don't try to judge people, we just read it. So we've had some, big biblical apocalypse books. We found some rare out of print books that from the 60s. So we'll take any requests that we can find the text for. We'll read it. And volunteers love doing it. I was saying earlier, we're doing a special request for a listener in Missouri whose grandfather was in World War II and was interviewed as part of this historical book about World War II and Missouri's connection to it. So that was one. And so when a listener or when a volunteer knows who it's for, they get really excited and they try to find that person's, oh, that's his grandpa. And, I like that. So the audio equipment sales is another thing. If you have a bunch of turntables or speakers you're trying to get rid of, vinyl records, we take donations and then we resell them. So we have volunteers who clean them up, test it out, make sure everything's working, and then we sell them. It used to be through the Douglas Fairgrounds, but now we're doing it at the Lawrence Library twice a year. And that's a great partnership because they try to sell their CDs and things that they don't need anymore. And then we're selling vinyl. So together, there's tons of great stuff available to the public. And they have really good parking. And so we like the Lawrence Library, and it's a wonderful partnership, and it's helped make our audio sales a lot less hassle on us and really beneficial to both organizations. So yeah, the next one will be in September. And if you ever have any donations or know anyone who wants to donate their gently used equipment, they can just drop it off anytime the office is open, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So talked a lot about the services, but how do people listen? So it used to just be those closed circuit radios that I mentioned at the beginning, but now we actually have quite a few new tech positive ways to access audio reader services. The radio is still an option, and if you're in a KPR or NPR station's radio sub-carrier broadcasting area, you can get a radio. But if you don't have Wi-Fi and you want to listen over the radio, we do have a telephone reader option that's supported by local Lions clubs. And the telephone reader, you call the 800 number and you can get straight to what you want to hear. So when it comes to something like the Target ad, we have one show where we just summarize kind of 15 minutes worth, or actually only about 8 minutes worth of the Target ad. But then we are on the telephone reader, we do the full ad cover. So people can get expanded content. They can skip articles on the paper. So if they've already heard the front page articles, they can skip to the entertainment. So the telephone reader option is really great, especially for people who don't have home Wi-Fi. But if you do have home Wi-Fi, there's lots of easy ways to listen. So I just mentioned those. One of our fastest growing listening options is the Alexa smart speakers. So if you have an Alexa Echo Dot, or even just the Alexa app on your phone, which is a free app you can download, you say, Alexa, enable the audio reader skill, and then you can immediately listen to the live stream, the 24-hour broadcast. And then if you know the name of the show you want to listen to, you can listen on demand. So it's a great option for people who maybe can't listen to the newspaper they want to hear at the time we're broadcasting it. Then they can just go to Alexa and listen to it whenever it's convenient for them. And then we also have, just last year, we released our listener website, which is audioreader.net. And we're really excited about the website because it's really screen reader friendly. So if you know anyone who has no vision at all, so someone who's fully blind, they have to access their computer without the use of a mouse, because the mouse isn't useful to them. So it's all tab keys and enter keys. I'm sorry?
Hang up the phone.
Oh, and so when pictures and text and all these things come in the way of the screen reader, it makes it really hard to get to the content. So we designed this page to be very screen reader friendly. It gets straight to the content. It also at the bottom has the font options where you can make the font bigger or change the contrast. Some visual disabilities make it where your eyes let in too much light, so you really need that dark background with the white text. So you can go with basically 3 clicks. You can listen to our 24-hour live stream. You just go to audioreader.net, play the live stream right there, and then there's actually 2 live streams. There's one that's our full state of Kansas live stream, and then there's a second one where from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. it's just Kansas City content for people in Kansas City. And then if you click the name of any show from the broadcast, it'll take you to this archive page. So Lawrence Journal World, for example, we air it at 11 a.m. But if you can't listen at 11 a.m., you just go to the schedule, click on it, and then you can actually see we archive old episodes. You can actually listen to months ago episodes through the archive page. And then I also mentioned we have additional content. So we have our SoundCloud page where we air some of our standing requests. For example, we read the Douglas County Your Senior Resource Center's newsletter. So if you go to yoursrc.org, you'll see their newsletter, and then our audio version is right there. We also read the Catholic Levin, published out of the Wichita Diocese. We read the VFW magazine. So every month when that comes out, we put that on our SoundCloud. And we actually have a list of about 40 veterans who get it on CD as well. We also have a podcast, original content called Good Works in the Heartland, where I interview organizations who are doing good works for the community and who offer resources to our listeners. So those are programs we offer that's in addition to that 24-hour broadcast of news and information. So this is an example of our VFW SoundCloud page. So when you go to soundcloud.com/audio-reader, it'll show you all of our extra content. And then you'll see when you click on one, you'll see that edition, and you'll hit play, that orange sort of arrow button. And then down below, you'll see all the other sections. So we try to have each article separated out, and also their activities separated out, so you can skip ahead if you're not interested in a certain article. And then over on the right, you can see other playlists from our audio reader, and that'll be other editions that we've read previously. So the reason that audio reader is around is, again, we're helping people with low vision, no vision, people who are dyslexic, people who are unable to hold reading material due to physical mobility limitations like Parkinson's and things like that. And here's a quote from our listener that I really like to share. "I lost my eyesight suddenly. It was startling. It was shocking, the disconnect. This service helped me learn how to feel connected to the world again." So I just love that because, a lot of people, as they're losing their sight, they just say, well, it's hard to read, so I just don't want to do it anymore. But we don't want people to give up on reading because it just brings so much joy to your life and so much independence for people who are losing their vision, to not have to ask their partner or their child or their friend or roommate, hey, read the paper to me. There's a service that does that, and then they can access it on their own and just gain that sense of independence. And the other reason it's so wonderful is because of our volunteers. We do have screen readers, which are wonderful and help people access the internet in a wonderful, accessible way. But here's another quote I like to share. "I have a computer and I can read the newspaper there, but I get tired of hearing the synthesized speech. My number one choice will always be audio reader services. It's nice to be able to access the newspaper and hear a familiar voice." And so I just love that. I've had listeners tell me that they can hear how someone is caring for them through the voice, And they've said that they just knowing that someone out there is taking 2 hours out of their day to read the paper to them, it just means so much that that is there, and that um, they feel that love and that caring. And so looking into the future, we are working on our own dedicated mobile app. So we're hoping to release that this summer. And that'll be another great way to access Audio Reader through your phone. And the great thing about the dedicated app is when you're listening to an on-demand program, you'll be able to change the listening speed. So a lot of our listeners, they either need us to slow it down or speed it up. We have a lot of listeners who listen to everything on double or triple speed because they just hear really fast, especially some of our younger listeners. So they like to be able to change that playback speed like you could on Libby or something like that. We're trying to do more on location specials, so more audio description receptions. So this picture here on the right was at the Lead Center last year. We did a special audio description event for a dance show called Tetris, where there was no dialogue at all. It was all people moving into the shapes of the Tetris game, so like L's and curving into each other. So it was this really acrobatic scene. So again, it's a very visual experience. So we had our excellent describer, Jen Nigro, there, who basically started the audio description program for Audio Reader. She did the description, and our listener, Linda here, she just said she had never had so much fun at a dance experience and just felt like she was able to enjoy it with everyone else who was sitting around her who was sighted. So it was a really, and that's the director right there in the Tetris t-shirt and the cap. They're from the Netherlands and they tour this all over the world, and it was just a really fun experience. And then the picture in the middle there is our program manager, Nick Carswell. He and I attended the Beep Ball World Series last summer in St. Louis, Missouri. And so this is a professional level baseball for people who are blind. And if you have even a little vision, you have to wear a blindfold. They have like these blinder things on there. So everyone is playing at an equal level. And it's amazing to watch. The ball itself, you have like a little pin, like a grenade pin. You pull it out and the ball starts beeping very loudly. And then the bases buzz. There's two bases instead of three. So you either go to the left or right. And basically, you hear the ball coming at you, you hit it, and then you listen for which base is buzzing, and you just run for that base. And the base itself has this big padded thing. It's about 7 feet tall, and they just run into it and tackle it. So they have regional tournaments, and then this ends up to culminate in the annual World Series of Beep Baseball. And they are amazing athletes, and it's really fun to watch. And they also are always looking for people to be base judges and announcers. So it was fun to volunteer there as well. So again, we couldn't do any of this without our volunteers. As I mentioned, we have, I think it's somewhere between 250 and 275 active volunteers right now doing all of our reading. And we're always looking for new volunteers to come on. I'll talk a little bit about some of the opportunities. There's kind of like a choose your own level. The first thing, all volunteers do go through an audition process. So the first step would be to apply. And then we take everyone, groups of applicants, and we take them through orientation, where we talk more about the kinds of programs we read and then what's available. A lot of our volunteers start as substitutes. So once they pass the audition process, and I guess I'll talk about the audition. During the audition, you read about 50 to 100 vocabulary words. And so you're kind of being graded on your general pronunciation. And then you read a news article. So you're kind of practicing what a news article would be. You describe a picture. So you're using those audio description skills to describe a picture in the newspaper. And then you also read a few grocery store ad samples. And so that's the audition. And then once you finish it and you've passed and become a volunteer, you can choose to substitute only. So you can pick up an assignment during that week if you have time. And then if you don't have time or you're traveling, you just don't pick up anything. Or once you get into it and you really like it, and a full-time assignment or a weekly show opens up, then you can kind of get plugged into a weekly assignment. And then most people, this picture here in the middle is Donna and Harold Ream. They retired last year after 40 years of volunteering together. So they are our only couple that we know of who together achieved this amazing milestone. We have our banquet next month at Maselli's, and I know we're celebrating someone who's celebrating the 45th anniversary of volunteering for us. We've only been around for 53 years, so that's almost the whole time. They remember when it used to be recording on reel-to-reels and you had to cut and splice, and so they've seen the technology advance over a 45-year period. So yeah, every year we appreciate our volunteers, and we celebrate in 5-year increment milestones. So yes, that's it. So those are the reader volunteers, but we also look for garden volunteers. Like I said, we have that sensory garden, and if you just like to play out in the garden and don't mind weeding or helping with choosing some plants, we also look for volunteers for that. So when you go to reader.ku.edu, that's our sort of main public website. You can find the volunteer tab, and that's where you would fill out the volunteer application, and you can indicate on there if you're interested in reading, sensory garden, or audio description. We are hoping to do an audio description training soon where we'll bring in more describers. We especially look for people with theater backgrounds. And because we're trying to expand that program more, we do it in Lawrence and Kansas City on request. But we used to do Topeka more and would like to expand back there. And in the future, we're looking into partnering with organizations in Wichita so that it can be available at the Century 2 for their Broadway series. So we're always looking for ways to expand with our limited resources. So those are the kinds of volunteer opportunities we have available. And then this last slide is my contact information. And I guess I'll stop now and see what kinds of questions anyone has for me.
There was a question that came up earlier in the chat box, and the person asked, where is the garden, the sensory garden, located?
So our address is 1120 West 11th Street in Lawrence. So it's basically across the street from JRP at that weird corner where it swoops into West Campus Road. We're behind the Triangle House and the Max Cade Center. If you've ever seen that Triangle House there on the corner, it's a weird little driveway. It looks like someone's personal driveway, honestly. And then you kind of keep going, you'll see signs for both KPR and Audio Reader. And then once you get back to the parking lot and you see the house, which, let's see, where's a good picture of the house? Maybe that was at the beginning.
Way at the beginning.
Yeah, so here's the house on the left there in the corner. You can see a car parked there. That's where the parking lot is. So you kind of park up there and then you walk in next to the building is where the path starts. Yeah. And you're welcome to stop by if you ever want a tour. You just walk in right behind where that car is parked. There's the main entrance. There's an awning over it now. The house itself was once a private residence, and then they donated it to KU Endowment in the 1940s.
It was a fraternity.
Yeah, and then it was a fraternity house up and through the 60s. And then they kind of trashed it and they fixed it up. What was that, Maureen?
No, I said it was a fraternity house. I didn't think it was a residence. But I guess it was.
Yeah, before it was a fraternity house, it was a residence. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Nice residence.
Yeah, there's some pictures of the original residence with the garage, and there was a tree right in front of this little circle driveway.
Wow.
So there's some pictures hanging up around the living room that show it as the house. But yeah, 1988 Endowment gave it to Audio Reader to use, and then KPR moved in 1991 or 1992, so pretty soon afterwards.
My question was I'm sorry, is it all right?
That's all right.
That's yeah, go ahead.
How many listeners do you have? Do you have a total?
That's a great question. It's kind of depends on our listening method. I think we've estimated that we have around 4,000 active listeners. we have about 1,500 radios out there, but we don't know when they're turned on or off, so it's hard to know who's listening to the radios. But our Alexa skill is growing. Just last year, we had just under 700 new Alexa users. And the year before that, it was over 600 new users. So we know we have pretty close to about 1,500 Alexa users. The website, I'm trying to think of what the exact statistics are, but the listener website that just came out last year is also really growing as a listening method. I know thousands of people listen every month. And then the telephone reader has, I think, about 30 calls per day where people are listening for over 20 minutes. So yeah, we're with the mobile app, we're hoping to have a little bit more targeted data as to how many people are listening to which shows, so that we can do promos for shows that maybe aren't getting as many listeners. And we can see more on the website who's listening to what. So we know that Kansas City Star is our top newspaper. We can see that, you know, dozens and dozens of people are listening to the grocery store ads every week. So yeah, it's nice to have some of the new technology because you can get more data. With the radios, we just know how many people have them. It's hard to know when they're actually being listened to.
Well,
But it was fun.
I'm sorry. My only other comment is if you can con your spouse into volunteering, you get to go to the appreciation dinner for $5 and you meet some absolutely great people there. That's my role.
And
Yeah.
the Century Garden is definitely worth
Oh, it's
seeing. Oh
beautiful.
my God, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
It's so calming just to go out there and just listen to the water rolling and the wind chimes. I love it. There's always birds this time of year. Yeah, and the banquet is something we all look forward to, and we try to get lots of listener comments because we know our listeners really appreciate the service, and it's so nice for volunteers to hear from those listeners. And food's always great. Maselli's is delicious. Yeah, so it's a big
How
highlight.
how is the service funded? I mean, it's a big job. It's a lot of technology, a lot of equipment, a lot of volunteers, but an awful lot of thrust behind all of that. So I was just wondering, how are you funded? And I hope you continue to be, but explain that to me. I was a volunteer once, but I never did find out how that works.
Yeah, well, it transitioned pretty massively at the end of the 2010s. It used to mostly be funded through KU, so we were the KU audio reader service, and they gave us our annual fund
Budget?
running budget we need to use. But then in 2018 they did, or 2018 they did slowly cut that. Half $500,000 a year budget was taken away by 2020. So we had to scramble, the development team really scrambled, and we basically did 2 years where every dollar we received in donations went into one big endowed account with KU Endowment. And so that way, about half of our operational expenditures we cover through our the interest on that endowed account. So we were really lucky to have so many generous donors really step up and help us with that. And then, so that covers about half of it. And then the other half is covered through our fundraising efforts. So through those audio equipment sales, through the golf sale, or the golf tournament every year. We send out fundraising campaigns throughout summer and fall. And then just our regular wonderful donors who just donate on a monthly basis. And then we do have a couple legacy donors, people who've written us into their estate. And then as they have passed away, we've received that money. So those are the ways that keep the lights on. And I don't know if I've mentioned this, keep the service free. So it doesn't cost anything to listen to audio reader. So because we're able to get those donations and we are so volunteer driven, yeah, it's a free service for anyone who needs us. So we're really excited about that. And we seem to be pretty fiscally solvent into the future as long as our donation levels stay consistent.
That's really wonderful. And I was wondering, so how does a person sign up? Do they just reach out to you and they actually get a little radio? Is that correct? A device?
So if they choose the radio option as their listening method, yes, we mail them the radio. It'll be pre-tuned to their area. So we have, in fact, I can show you our coverage map here. I'll bring it up and then I'll share my screen to show you which radio areas we still have. And I can show you, actually, I'll show you the application here too. Let me share my screen again. So this is our main reader.ku.edu website. And when you go to the menu on the left side and choose services, then you'll see the application for service. And so we mail closed circuit radios or Echo Dots or Echo Pops to new listeners. So when they fill out the application, they'll automatically be signed up for our program guide that comes out quarterly. You fill out your name, your basic information, and then here's where you would choose if you want to listen to the radio. If you choose telephone reader, we send you an individualized telephone reader code so you can access that 800 number I mentioned earlier. If you choose Alexa streaming, then I send the Echo Dot because it's such a great device, especially for our listeners who have limited mobility. Like for example, let's say Parkinson's, or they're wheelchair bound or something. It really helps because you can just talk to the Alexa and you don't have to touch any buttons. Sometimes the keypad on a telephone is a barrier to accessing us through the phone. So we're happy to send those devices out to people who need us. And then sometimes people sign up just because they have a special request or they want audio description. But usually you request audio description through the theater when you're buying your tickets, and then they contact us, but you can let us know if there's something specific you want here. And then we send our quarterly program guide out in Braille, large print, or by email. And then it does ask who your certifying authority is, and that can be really anyone, a family member, a care worker, a librarian, anything like that. We put that there. We do ask what your reason for the service is. Low vision, macular degeneration are probably our most common ones. And then who referred you or how you found out about us. So that is the application. And then what was the other thing I was going to say?
That's pretty much explains how you
Yeah.
get the service. That's great. Well, volunteer.
Oh yeah, and then
that might be interesting.
yeah, and then I'll show you some of our listeners don't really have to sign up per se. They can just start listening. We do have a program guide only if they just want to start receiving the program guide. This is the listener website I was telling you about. And at the bottom here, you have that. You can make the text much larger. The closed captioning is in the way here. I'm not sure what I'm clicking on. But then you go to listen to the live stream and play the live stream. It will ask you, so just start. So that's what's going on our live stream right now. It will ask you, it knows me, but the first time you access it, it will ask you if you have a print disability, and you have to click yes for the options to open up. So we trust people to self-identify. We're also okay with people saying they have a print disability if they're showing it to someone else or helping them access the service. And then again, from this home screen, you can go to that daily schedule. And this is where, again, you can make the text bigger. If you're looking just for Breakfast Table Times is our live show where we read Kansas City Star and Topeka Capital Journal. Shopper Showcase. This is Dylan's Price Chopper, things like that. So you can listen to the latest recording, or you can go back and listen to past episodes.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
That is really impressive. That is so fun.
Yeah, we're really excited to be able to offer the service to people and not have to charge them for it. And another thing I was going to say, we also work really closely with Kansas Talking Books. If you've never heard of them, they are serving the same population as us, people with low vision and print disabilities, but they are part of the National Library Service. And so they have access to 130,000 audiobooks that have been nationally produced. So that's a sort of complementary, we say we're partners. We're not necessarily associated with each other directly, but if there's a book that we don't have, we look to them to see if they have it. Any popular books, they're definitely going to have audiobooks of. You get a free audio Bible when you sign up, and you never have to return it, so it's yours forever. They can send people Bard players where you can put like 30 books on one cartridge. And so if you're an avid book reader and you really need lots of books, I like to say audio reader is great for the day-to-day news, the things that keep you connected and to the pulse of your local community. And Talking Books has lots of extra books that you can read as well. So a lot of listeners will sign up for both services, and they're both free services. So, and the good thing about the Bard is if you qualify for Talking Books, I don't know if any of you use Libby or any of those, you get to skip the line and there's no wait lists. So I know I'm always online for waiting for some book, but when you're a Talking Book patron, they have some special license where you can just get it directly. So if a new book comes out, you can put your favorite authors on the book and on the list, your wish list, and anytime a new book comes out, you can get access to it right away. So
Yes,
it's
that's
pretty
very,
cool.
it's very frustrating to live in a community where people read. When you're number 12 on the wait list, but it's always a lovely
know.
surprise. It's always a lovely surprise when they tell you the book is in.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, that book, I totally forgot even
Oh.
it. Yeah.
That is amazing. What a wonderful use of technology.
Yeah.
Hooray. Hooray
And
and
like I said,
hooray.
we're looking for more and more ways to make it easy for our listeners to listen. Another thing we're looking into is a telephone number to our live stream. So right now you call the telephone for a specific program, but there are still pockets of Kansas and Missouri that don't have Wi-Fi, or the Wi-Fi access is satellite and very expensive. So we do want to make sure there's offline options for our listeners.
This brings a whole bunch of questions to my mind, which, of course, like most human beings, we're thinking about themselves most of the time. I mean, I cannot imagine how a person who is blind, I mean, how do they use this laptop? How do they do that? I mean, talk about a difficulty.
It's fascinating for one thing. Anyone can try it though. You can try it yourself. If you go to your accessibility settings and turn on the built-in screen reader, and then try not to use your mouse. I mean, just think about how much you use the mouse and point and click. It's
Yeah.
so easy. But without the mouse, you don't know where on the screen it is. It's just tab, 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 and you just have to trust the screen reader to find it. But they're getting better. iPhones have excellent built-in screen readers and built-in accessibility. Androids do too. So if you're someone who it's too bright or you need larger text, you can actually go into your accessibility settings, turn on outline text, make large text. You can have it set to automatically read alt text on pictures. So it's getting better and better. But it is a struggle, and there's a lot of websites that are not accessible, including the KU website, sadly, because the reason we built our .NET was the KU site, you can't set the reading order, and it wants to read the menu before the page content, and every page has cookies, and it's like, cookies, cookie warning, you accept these cookies, and it really just trips up the screen reader. So I watched a blind from birth listener try to access our website on a screen reader, and I was like, this is not going to work. We have to do something
Wow,
different.
that's just amazing. Talk about it. Just things that have to change and getting information out to everybody. I don't know if I speak for all the retirees, but it's been a real dash for me to catch up to this new way of communicating, living, working, writing, communicating, conducting business. And I often think, I remember once upon a time there were travel agents, and I would just call the travel service and say, could you get me a flight? And they would send me an actual ticket. And boy, that was a long time ago in a world far, far away. Getting
Still far.
farther, I must say. So it's really wonderful that this service exists. Are any questions from anybody who's here today? I'm kind of wondering, uh, as I say, this is a bit of a departure from Tech Club. Normally, we're talking about all kinds of things that have to do with using a computer, but I'm glad on a couple ways. One is that this is a use of technology that really warms my heart. Reaching out to a population that would be very challenged to get this information any other way. And also, I'm really happy that in Retroactive, we're discussing volunteer possibilities. We're going to be doing that a little bit later with another presentation, but one thing that retirees are supposed to have is time. Although I know most of you would probably say you're busier now than when you were working, but it's good to have some time, and it's good to use your time to help someone else. They say that's good for you, right up there with
Yeah.
pumping iron and eating properly. So get out and help
Yeah.
somebody. That'd be really great.
It's a one, our volunteers are amazing, like Maureen, and as Jack mentioned, the people who are volunteering for us are a lot of retired professors, retired professionals. So you really get to connect with some of the most amazing philanthropic people in our community, who are often volunteering at multiple different places. And I see it especially like in the Lions Club. I've just seeing people who are so active into their 90s, and I really feel like it keeps you engaged and keeps your mind working. And that's my biggest fear in life. I have a whole side of my family with Alzheimer's, so I'm just trying to do everything I can to prevent it and stay active and keep my brain going.
Yeah. Have you ever had anybody refuse to read something? I mean, I just to be sensational here and ask a question like that, or has that ever
Yes,
happened? Has
yes.
somebody said, "I'm sorry, I don't read this guy," or anything like that?
We have had some interesting requests, and we try our best not to judge people and things like that, but sometimes people request things that are just filled with profanity, and we have some listeners who just aren't, or readers who just aren't comfortable with that. And so
Right.
that's, we don't want to force someone to read something
No.
that hurt, it's hard for them. So we find another volunteer. We have had, I'll be real honest, we've had books that include, gay sex. So we try to choose volunteers who we know are going to be okay with that. So we try to say we're the eyes and not the brain. We're not trying to think for someone. We just want to communicate the words on the
Yeah.
page as best as we can without editorializing or editing, because people they want access to the real stuff. They don't want it toned down. They want to know what's written on the page. So yeah, we have had to ask people and warn them, say there's some content in here. Are you okay with it? And
Well, good
our
for you.
volunteers are amazing because some of them are very okay with doing the adult hour where we read Playboy and describe the
I think-
pictures. And
I think that's wonderful. I know when I watch Call the Midwife, they warned me at the beginning that there are adult themes, Somebody's going to talk about pregnancy, I guess. But anyway, so it's nice to be warned these days.
Yeah.
And I'll just yammer on a little bit more. One of the things before audiobooks, I guess, when my husband and I would travel, I would read aloud to him. I'd read a book. We'd pick out a book and I'd read it. Well, this was long ago, and I chose Angela's Ashes. So we're going down the road and reading the book, and suddenly I'm coming across, there's feck in this and feck in that, and I thought, oh, I wonder what could that word be? Is it like foolish, like feckless, or I'm not understanding. And then about halfway through the book, I thought, holy mackerel. Oops. But I had no idea. I got a good laugh out of that. But yeah, so I had no idea I was being so rude, but I had no idea what that word was.
Yeah.
So
It's hard sometimes. That's why we like to kind of preview the newspaper because, when I was a volunteer, I just start reading a newspaper article in some neutral cadence or whatever, and then I read a child has died or something. So I'm like, no, we need a little bit more of a somber tone,
yeah,
to this.
yeah.
Whenever we read a newspaper, we always read the front pages and the obituaries. The obituaries are very important, and it's hard to get access to some of those local obituaries without audio reader. So again, we just try to be, very formal and, have that tone of solace and
I'm going to ask
yeah.
Maureen, are you still a volunteer, and what are you reading up at Audio Reader?
Read the Target ads every Sunday. So, and it always sounds boring, but I don't know. It's just not that, maybe because it's not that hard. I find some of the where you read in real time, I find that a little challenging. I'm
Yes.
really not that kind of a reader. But I have to say I'm grateful for Audio Reader from a more selfish point of view. I've always wanted to read this kind of thing. And until I got to California and did recording for the blind and dyslexic, I couldn't do it. But their audience is they record books that go to Princeton, and that's like the clearinghouse. But how far does it go, Martha, here? Is it just people in like Kansas and Missouri, or what's your audience?
Well, the great thing about our website is that you can access us from all over the world now. When it was only radios, it was really limited to, the radio listening area. Oh, that's what I was going to bring up on the website was our radio listening area. But now it's anywhere, and it's kind of fun because we have people who have grown up in Kansas, but then they move out to the coasts and they can listen to the Pittsburgh Today, out from LA where they are now. So we some of our special requests come from Minnesota. I know we're sending program guides to New Mexico and Texas, and so we do have listeners all over the United States. And again, that's one of the great things about the technology, is we're not as limited as we used to be. So
Maureen's also read a couple novels. Tom, she sells herself short. She's also read a couple novels for them. Although she's a little particular, they have to be mysteries or she won't read them.
Because what they do is they set up books that they want read, and if you go in, you can just pick something out. But to tell you the truth, since COVID, and I record at home, so I haven't really been in very much anymore. You really kind of lose that connection, which is kind of a shame. But it isn't easy to do it at home, so that's where I do it.
yeah, I did. Yeah, the pandemic was kind of fun in that way.
Yeah, that changed an awful lot. And when I was a reader, of course, this was before COVID. So we would go to that beautiful building. There was always coffee, and some kind person had made some kind of snack. There was biscotti homemade, it's really a rough assignment.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And when I first went in there and for my orientation, they take you through KPR Studios on the tour, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a lot in
it's
that
fun.
building.
Yeah, the live performance studio for KPR
Yeah.
is sort of the highlight of the building. They have like $100,000 grand piano and this really cool equipment. So I'm pretty like, can I touch the piano? But it's really fun.
So now we're really working you over. This is a wonderful thing to volunteer for, and when Maureen, one of the things that I did was I read the horoscope.
Oh, wow.
And that
That's
was
fun.
really fun because I would
Right.
really, really ham it up and say, "Oh, Virgo, you have a 5-star day."
My favorite though
Avoid
was
people in purple, whatever.
my favorite was the obituaries, because some people would say, in lieu of flowers, he just asked that the next time you're at a bar, raise a glass to him.
Oh,
It's a
People
lot
did
of
some
fun.
really fun things. It was really cool.
I know. It's really a lot of fun, and it is a really worthwhile thing to do. And also they treat their volunteers very, very well. So I guess if there aren't any more questions, we're just grateful that you took time to talk to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you very much for being here today and telling us all about audio reader. And you know so much about it. You are they're not paying you enough, whatever they're paying.
Oh, oh, well, thank you so much.
You
I'm
made
so
it
glad to
very,
meet
very
everyone.
clear. And then we thank you so
Yeah.
much. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And we'll see you at the next Tech Club. Just to give you a sneak preview, we've got a wonderful memory lab now at the library. And Kathleen's husband is going to talk to us about how to get our stuff ready to go to the memory lab and digitize all our photos, all of our mementos, how to record them. The memory lab is going to be is a wonderful addition to the library. So we're going to be talking about that for our next two tech clubs. So yeah, Jack.
Speaking of last word, tonight's the last night to get your raffle tickets for the fundraiser for the library, which you can do online, or you can go to the library till 8 o'clock. And if you really want to scare, you can go between 6 and 8 because I'll be there. But this is your last chance to get any extra tickets for the raffle. So the raffle's still going. We have excitedly sold all the tickets to the event, and we have made our goal, but the goal was a slouch. So I told them they had to raise the goal. So we have a new goal to do that. So you can go online, $5 a chance. There's some great prizes. There's 27 baskets this year, which is a record. And it's a great opportunity, and you do not have to be present to win.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, and I'll be there tomorrow too. And
Okay.
my sister's coming from Chicago. The family from Chicago is coming. So I hope we win something. And thank you so much, Martha, and thank you everybody for coming today. And we'll see you next time.
Good to see you,
And
Betty and Maureen.
bye, everyone. Thanks for being here. Volunteer for your audio reader.